Hi, I'm Christabel Clotilda Mhiribidi and I'm from Zimbabwe, particularly from the Zimbabwe Environmental Law Association, which is a public interest environmental law organization that focuses on safeguarding the environment and empowering marginalized communities in Southern Africa.
Hi, I am Liesbet Steer. I am the Executive Director of the Global Education Commission, which is chaired by Gordon Brown, the UN Special Envoy for Global Education. And the Commission is working to raise education on the agenda globally, including at this COP27, where we are talking about all sorts of problems threatening our world, and that also includes the lack of education. And we are here at COP27 to talk about education and climate education.
So Liesbet, it's good to be with you today. The question that I want to ask you is, how are you finding COP? Do you think it's being productive? Do you think we're going somewhere? How are you finding it?
That's a really good question. I think there is a lot of energy at this COP. And especially on the issue of education, I think this COP is more energetic than the last COP.
Oh, interesting.
There is an increasing recognition that education is important in the dialogues here. Because we know that we don't only have a crisis of our planet, but we also have a crisis in our human development. And unless we solve that crisis, we won't be able to solve the climate crisis. Because today, 840 million young people are leaving education without basic secondary literacy and numeracy skills, which means they are totally ill-equipped for the future of tomorrow. And education matters in three ways. The first one is climate literacy, and that is a topic that has been gaining increasing momentum, including here, and a lot of people are talking about it. But there are two other reasons why education matters. We've heard a lot in the conversations here about mitigation. And mitigation means that we need to move from a growth path that destroys the planet to an alternative growth path that uses the planet in a way that's sustainable. To do that, we need to have the skills. And it's been a missed opportunity here to think about what the human capital element is. And the third reason why we need to think about education is that we are already losing the battle on the climate front. And and we are being impacted by climate change. And where you come from, there are huge impacts.
Very huge impact. It actually has no boundaries. It's impacting with everyone. Everywhere. And it's sad.
And what is interesting is that people who think about adaptation often think about building infrastructure or coming up with technological solutions. But the best way to adapt is to educate.
Everything starts with education.
Like
Nelson Mandela says, it's the most powerful weapon that we can use to change the world.
So what are you doing here at COP, and what are you thinking about the progress being made?
So here at COP, what I was focusing on mostly is following on the engagements that have been happening on engagement on mitigation, because we need to accelerate the mitigation so that we are able to fight this climate issue that is affecting all of us. So I was also following on children and youth, because that's an area of interest. I believe that children are not passive recipients, neither are youth passive recipients, but we're all agents of change. So I've been following on that and also seeing like how we as young people can also be at the forefront of adaptation, of trying to adopt those localized strategies to address climate change, of mitigation, trying to reduce the greenhouse gases and increase the carbon sinks. So that is what I've been following on.
I heard that you also work on extractive industries, which is a big topic as well.
Yeah.
What are you advocating for?
Okay, so in the extractive industries, what I've been advocating for mostly is that in those mining host communities, the people there should benefit, one. And also in those mining host communities, the mining should also be done in a sustainable manner. Because, you know, when we talk of sustainable development, we're saying that we want to meet the needs of the present, but we don't want to compromise the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. So when we talk of these things, we're actually saying that as we are implementing our different projects within our different areas, we're supposed to pay attention to that, because we do not want to destroy this planet. You know, like the former UN Secretary once said, former UN Secretary Ban Ki-moon, he says that there is no plan B because there is no planet B. So it's very important for us to ensure that we take care of the mother planet, because this is the only planet that we as humanity can exist on.
Yes.
So it's very important. That is why on the extractive sector, what we're focusing mostly on is interacting with communities. We let them know of their rights, and also that their rights come with responsibilities. They're supposed to be responsible custodians for the environment, and as the message that is directed to the mining companies, we'll actually be saying to them, as you're doing your initiatives, please try by all means to ensure that it's sustainable, because we don't want you to degrade the land and there is no rehabilitation that comes with it.
Yes, it is so important, because you cannot decommission coal plants, you cannot move to this alternative pathways without engaging the communities and making sure that the human capital that's present in those communities can be redeployed towards new activities that are more sustainable. So there is no mitigation without education.
Indeed, there is no mitigation without education.
So what about the impacts of climate change where you live? Can you tell me a little bit about that and how that's affecting populations, and what you think the role of education might be?
Okay. Well, for the impacts of mitigation, I can say that they are very devastating. You see, climate change is a very topical issue which is impacting, like I mentioned, is impacting on everyone, and it's impacting on everything. The biodiversity, you speak of humanity, everywhere, no one is actually being left out with this climate crisis thing. I remember in 2019 there was the cyclone Idai. I'm not sure if you've heard of that.
Yes.
And it was so devastating. Like, it brought a lot of damages into the lives of humanity.
Yes.
You realize that when Cyclone Idai happened, according to the World Vision, more than 100,000 homes were destroyed. And that is very disheartening. And it also meant that the infrastructure was destroyed, the buildings, top of the plants, a lot of things were destroyed, and that is how devastating climate change can be.
Yes.
So to come to think of all that, you then actually get to realize that. So climate change is not only like posing problems, but it's also multiplying the already existing problems that we have. Because when you talk of the girl child, you realize that some of them had to drop out of school because of this crisis that happened. And when they drop out of school, what's the next thing? They're going to be married off by their parents because they also want to try and sustain themselves. Some were actually involved now in drugs and a lot more. So it's very important for us to raise awareness on climate change.
Yes,
and
I agree.
also so that, you know, when we enlighten people on climate change, it actually means that we're empowering them.
Yes.
So when you're enlightened, you're empowered. And when you're empowered, you're actually in a better position to also play your role in addressing the climate crisis.
Agency is very important. I heard that educating young women can reduce the the deaths on extreme weather events by 60%. And I think that is because we are giving people agency. We are giving them the ability to react when extreme weather events happen. So we are convinced, and also the evidence shows that investing in education can provide that resilience, that flexibility.
It certainly does.
The cyclone, by the way, also damaged school buildings, many school buildings, and it also ended for many children school meal programs. And one of the things that we also see where there's a big intersection between climate and education is in food systems, because food is being delivered through schools, and that is also being impacted by climate. And so we are advocating together with the World Food Programme to use school meals to change food systems, because if you introduce healthy meals in schools, you don't only provide good nutrition, you help children learn, but you can also help
because
develop...
you cannot learn when you're hungry.
Exactly. And you can also help develop the local agriculture. And so shifting diets, moving local agriculture towards more sustainable, nutritious crops can actually be connected to school systems. So that is something that we also really look forward to working on with young people like you. I hope you would be part of that.
Certainly, I would love to be. It would be an amazing opportunity, really.
That is
because
great.
Food insecurity is actually a very topical issue, especially now that climate change is wreaking havoc already. It's also being intensified. So it's a very interesting area to work on.
Yes.
I'll be open
so
to that.
No mitigation and no adaptation without education.
Thanks
for watching our cup of coffee.